bringing you in-depth discussion from one of the most read group of online writers covering the Edmonton Oilers. Are you ready for Oilers Overtime? Join us as we talk news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and more, all featured on one of the most glorified teams in the NHL, from the great one to the next one, from the boys on the bus to the decade of darkness. This is Oilers Overtime.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Oilers Overtime with the Hockey Raiders. My name is Jim Parsons. Before we get into our regular panel of THW contributors to talk about the Oilers, we got a very special guest on with us this week. Michael Hebert is with us. Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. So here's the story for people that don't know what's going on. So I stumbled across, and I'm a big hockey card guy. Love Upper Deck, of course. I stumbled across your picture. And basically what's going on is they've got a My MVP contest going on where people can vote on fans of certain teams. And you are in the finals for this contest. Can you tell everybody, what are you up for here? Like, what can you win? What do you get? What makes the My MVP contest with Upper Deck so attractive?
Yeah, so I've been asked this question a few times, and I'll be honest, I don't know what else is in the contest, like what else I can win. But the main prize is I've waited 45 years of my life to be on a hockey card, and if I win, I'm part of the next Upper Deck set in 2021. So that'll be my rookie card, and I'm already counting on autographing a few for friends and family. So
nice. Yeah, I don't even know if I'd have enough people that would want my autograph, but that said, it'd be kind of cool. So the idea behind this is to show that you're the ultimate fan of your team. Is that the deal?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I have a hard time thinking I'm the ultimate fan. There's certainly some great fans out there, but I've used hockey and the Oilers as a medium and a vehicle to give back to the community, and so, if anything, I would love for all of that to help me out and get a hockey card, or as I like to call it, the "Who the hell is this guy" card.
That's right. Yeah. As they're opening things up and they're coming across your favorite stars, which is always so limited in these sets now, and then they come across your picture and they're going, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully they read the My MVP and put two and two together, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
So if it's a kind of about the idea that you're, I won't say the ultimate, but a real Oilers fan, can you take me back to kind of the beginning of where it started for you? Like, what got you into the Edmonton Oilers? Because you're in Halifax, right? So were you born and raised in Edmonton, or what's the story there?
Yeah, definitely. Born and raised in Edmonton, lived there most of my life. Been in Halifax now only since November. Of course, I moved from Calgary, the enemy territory. You know what? I've been an Oilers fan for as long as I can remember. My first game was an Oilers game, obviously, growing up there. I think it was, I couldn't remember. I was asked this question the other day. I can't remember if it was Detroit or LA, but it had to be around 84 year. So, we killed them. It was sick. It was like 13-2. And back then you could, if you were lucky enough to go to a game, you could walk down to the ice level because there were always empty seats, especially against teams like Detroit or LA. And you know what? It was hard not to be an Oilers fan. My family has French background, so there's a lot of Habs fans in there, and I was a big Guy Lafleur fan growing up as well. But it's hard not to be an Oilers fan in oil country.
Yeah, well, and we all got so spoiled, right? Between the Gretzky years and the Messier and all that other stuff, and now we've got Connor McDavid. So one of the things that I really noticed and why I wanted to sort of do this interview with you specifically was part of the profile, I guess if that's what you want to call it, on these cards in the My MVP contest is the charity aspect of the things that you do. So you've kind of turned your being a fan into some podcasts and some video shows and then charity hockey games. Where did it go from just kind of, okay, I really do like this team, I love hockey, now I'm going to take the next step, I'm going to start doing this other stuff?
Yeah, charity has been a big theme of mine over the last, I want to say 15 years. I was, the recipient of some agencies and some help myself. I suffered from some addictions and had some moments where I was, at at my wit's end and needed to turn to the food bank and other things. So, I've been lucky enough to come through that and, with a helping hand. And so I've always thought it important to give back. And there came to a point where, I'd started the podcast kind of on a whim. And, some other folks said, well, why don't we get, a number of the Twitter folks together and play some hockey? And it made sense to put a charity around that, and it kind of grew from there. And we got a committee together now, and we've probably raised around 20 grand for charities through the Oilers Live Cup, and then I never turned down a chance to play in a charity hockey game. I've played in Hockey Helps the Homeless in 4 different cities. I've played in Tech for Good in Toronto and Oakville, and I constantly play hockey if it's if there's a chance and there's something good to come of it, then definitely I'm there.
Awesome. And so you're, I mean, that's going to be really important, I think, when people are looking at this. Not that these other fans aren't fantastic, but that charity aspect really caught my attention. You're doing hosting for shows and stuff too, right? Like you've had the Oilers Live podcast, is that right, for a while, and other things like that too, right?
Yeah. In fact, I've had a number of hockey writers guests on there from the hockey writers. Great guests as always. Shane Sanders more than once or twice. I think you were on with Eric once, and it's just been a part of being a fan, and I've really enjoyed it. And I don't think I'd change it. I mean, I eat, sleep, and breathe hockey, and I love talking about it. Hey, if you give me, just probably like yourself, if you can schedule time to talk hockey, well, why not? Sign me up.
Right? Yeah, there's a lot of worse things you can do with your time, right? Like
right,
the worst day talking hockey is a lot of people's best day. So it's pretty fun. I'm going to ask you a quick question, though, a little off topic. And when we get to the end of this interview, we'll let people know where they can vote for you. But the Oilers are in the playoffs right now. So we're about to have a panel on after you talking about their series with the Jets and everything like that. Give me a little bit as an Oilers fan, a host, a big hockey avid a guy. What do you see happening here between the Oilers and the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I mean, I like most Oilers fans, I've got them winning in 6 games is what I took them for. I just, obviously the big concerns are how, a guy like a Vezina Trophy winner like Hellebuck plays, and whether he can come through for the Jets. And then they've been leaking goals. If they can find a way, if that third line can come through maybe and check McDavid and keep him down to a couple points a night, which seems absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. But if they can do that and Hellebuck can, make a couple saves, they're a dangerous team. They've got, I think if you go further down the lineup, they've got more forward depth than the Oilers do. But certainly in that top 6 for Edmonton, there's some firepower there, and I just think that'll be the story. I think after Draisaitl and McDavid have matured just year over year, this is their year. I think we're going to see a whole new side. Draisaitl is he's such a competitor, and I think when he in these types of instances, he just raises his game that much. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. And we're lucky.
They're certainly going to be motivated, after last year's playing against Chicago and just how that went. And, Mike Smith wants to play better, and Leon and Connor just don't want to repeat the same performance again. I do think this series with Winnipeg is going to be tougher than people. Ruling out the Jets is a bad idea, but I think it'll be good. So before we close things off, because I don't want to steal too much of your time, tell people how they can vote for you, because the idea here, and I don't want to jinx it, but I think you're doing pretty good in this contest so far. So let's keep that rolling. Let's get you some more votes. How can people vote for you?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Go to upperdeck.com/mymvp and then look for the Oilers mug, and that's me. And hit that. It'll take you to a tweet that Upper Deck put out, and just like that tweet. And if you can share it and tell your friends, there's a Nashville Predators fan that's been neck and neck with me this whole time, and he looks like a hell of a fan, but and tough competition. So I need every vote that I can get for sure.
Well, this probably won't imitate real life, because I can't imagine the Oilers and the Predators are going to meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. But that said, we'll try to get you as many votes as we can here, Michael. I appreciate you taking a few minutes. I'm sure you've done a lot of these interviews, just trying to let people know what's going on. And I really do wish you good luck. I hope when I open up the pack of cards next for go around, I see the Oilers in there. I go, who the hell is this guy? But I'll know because
right,
I've talked to you, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, Michael. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Oilers Overtime. Hopefully you enjoyed the interview with Michael Hebert. He's up for my MVP, the Upper Deck Series. He's going to be a potential hockey card. So go vote for him. I know all four of us here now on the panel will do so. And let's welcome him back. Colton Pankiw is with us. Colton, how you doing?
The snow coming down right now is a little depressing, but I mean, playoffs starting tomorrow, so pretty good.
For those of you that are not in Edmonton right now, it's May and it is snowing. Go figure, right? Yeah, that's right. Playoff hockey. It's like Christmas without snow. Who wants Christmas without snow? Who wants Oilers playoff action without snow? Brian Swane's down in the corner. Brian, how are you?
Good. Ready to looking forward to this. It's been a long time coming.
I know. It's like, as people watch this, it's going to be tonight that the game is happening. I like sleeps, the nervous sleeps. I just can't wait, right? And Julian Mongillo is down in the corner. Julian, how are you?
I'm a lot better knowing that I don't have to deal with any snow. We're at 28 degrees out in Ontario, so I'm clear there. And the playoffs are really heating up, and they're fun games to watch right now. So that's good.
Yeah, that's the thing about Edmonton. I think like 2 days ago it was 21 degrees, and now it's snowing, which is of course, right? And no fans to go trucking through everything just to get to watch the Oilers either, which is kind of a bummer. So let's talk about what's on everybody's mind. The action's been great so far. I assume the Oilers and Winnipeg Jets series will be no different. It'll be a lot of fun, lots of offensive hockey, maybe one of the more offensive series so far in the first round. Julian, I'm going to start with you. What are you looking for here from the Oilers and Jets series, and how many games do you figure? I'm assuming you're going to pick the Oilers. I probably should ask that first, but how many games do you figure the Oilers are going to do this in?
I'm tempted to go the other way and just stir the pot a bit and say Jets, but I put out my picks on my Twitter, and I've picked the Oilers in 5 to win the series. I just think that the firepower they have is going to be too much for the Jets on the defensive side of the puck. I think their ability to score is going to outweigh what the Jets have, especially if Ehlers isn't in the lineup. Which I don't know if that's confirmed yet or not, that he is going to play or not. But either way, I think McDavid and Draisaitl will be able to handle most of the heavy lifting on offense. And if Mike Smith can just continue what he's doing on the back end, then they'll be in good hands.
Colton, I saw you recently took a look at some of the missing pieces out of the Winnipeg organization. Do you have any indication of who's officially not in, or is it official yet?
It sounds like there's a few guys that are leaning towards more being doubtful. I know Nikolai Ehlers was one. Then there's a few other guys too. Andrew Kopp I had seen. It sounds like Paul Stastny will play. I can't remember if I'm missing anybody else there, but I know Ehlers is. Pierre-Luc Dubois too, I think, was more towards doubtful. So obviously, if Ehlers and him don't play, that's two pretty big losses for the Jets up front to start the series.
So where do you have that? If they don't play, I'm assuming you were going to pick the Oilers anyway, but what does it change your outlier of where they're going to be in this series? How many it'll take for the Edmonton Oilers to get this done?
Yeah, it's tough just not knowing. I mean, if they were out for the entire series kind of thing, then yeah, it'd definitely be easier. But regardless, I was kind of coming in just thinking Oilers in 6, so I'm just going to stick with that.
Ryan, what about you? You got a prediction for this series?
I'm also I'll echo Colton. I'll go Oilers in 6 as well. I think the Jets might take a game or two here off the top. Excuse me. I think it could be, I think the Jets could go up 1-0, maybe 2-1. And I'm just going to caution everybody here in Edmonton, don't panic. If that happens, this team, you know what? This is not the same team we've seen in the past. I think they can handle a bump in the roads. You know what? If they come out and get the doors blown off, which hopefully won't happen, but if it does in one of these first couple games, it's going to be all right. Everyone take a deep breath. But I think, this is an experienced Jets team. This is a talented Jets team. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be in the lineup, but they've got a Vezina caliber goalie who could steal some games. So I think it's going to be a good series, but I have a lot of belief in the Oilers. We've talked about this all season, just how driven that they seem and how much they appear to have learned from last year. And so I'm going to say Oilers in 6, but I think this is going to be really interesting off the start.
I'm going to go Oilers in 5. I think if the Jets win one, it'll be the first one because I have a feeling that The Oilers have this tendency every once in a while to let some leaky stuff happen in their game early. And if they get behind, they might have some trouble getting it back for the first game. But if that happens, I think you're going to see a very, very pissed off Oilers team. And they're a better team on the road than they are at home. So it wouldn't shock me at all if they, not that road games are technically road games in this North Division, but they'll win both games in Winnipeg. That wouldn't shock me at all. So I'm going to go Oilers in 5. I do think the superstar power is well in favor of the Oilers. I think Mike Smith's going to have a much better series, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. I get the sense they were rolling, and Winnipeg did win that last game of the regular season against Toronto, but the Oilers are, doing well. I like that they lost the last game of the season to Vancouver, right? Because go ahead.
I just want to keep track that's 2 times that you've agreed with me, Leafs fan. So we're keeping track. That's the second time in my 3 episodes.
I don't hate the Leafs. If you're not Edmonton, I don't like you. That's just the deal, right? It's not that I hate the Leafs. It's just if you're not the Oilers, I don't like it. Like that's just the way it goes, right? Everybody else, until they're out, and then I don't know. I'll cheer for some random. I'll cheer for Carolina just to make Dean happy. And for those of you that don't know Dean, Dean's the producer of the show. All right, so we've got Oilers winning the series pretty handily, although some of us had said 6 games, which seems fair. Nobody figures they're going to stretch us out too long. People that are ruling out the Winnipeg Jets, though, I would say be cautious of that. Winnipeg may not have done well against the Oilers in the regular season, but this is not the regular season anymore. This is a totally different animal.
I'll just add to that, too. I mean, I think if you look back through playoff history, there's been a lot of times where what the series has been in the regular season has gone the complete opposite way in the playoffs. I think, for example, the Oilers against the Stars in 97, I don't think they beat them at all in the regular season, and look what happens. So, I'll say that for this series. I'll say that for any series. Don't read too much, especially in this environment, to what happened in the regular season.
Well, we saw it last year, right? Like the Oilers should have handily beaten Chicago, and look what happened, right? It was a total shocker. So speaking of shockers, good segue, Colton. I'm going to start with you on this next one. For those that haven't been Oilers fans back in the 2006 run and things like that, Fernando Pisani is well known around the city as a guy who no one figured would do much and had a miraculous series run of playoff games for the Oilers back in that run. I don't know what he ended up with, like 14 goals or something like that, but it was a crazy, crazy performance that wound up getting him a contract. And we won't go as far as saying, okay, this is going to get somebody a new contract, but let's take a guess here. If we had to pick a player on this Oilers team, we're not going to talk about McDavid here. We're not going to talk about Draisaitl here. We're not going to talk about Nurse or those guys that are obviously going to be massive contributors in the series and have to be for the Oilers to do well. But who is the person on this roster that you think could have a Fernando Pisani kind of series or playoff run that we should maybe keep our eye on? Go, this is a guy who could surprise.
Yeah, I think back to the last time they were officially in the playoffs, I guess in 2016-17, and just the performance Zach Kassian had in a lot of games. And I know he struggled a lot this season. I know he was hurt right up till just today. I seen he was going to play. And I think that's a guy whose game just kind of gets picked up in those big moments. I think sometimes in the season it can almost, I don't want to say isn't interested, but just struggles to, I don't know, just get the motivation or whatever it may be. So I think in the playoffs, that's a guy that I think can really turn his game up. So he'd be my pick.
Julian, how about you? Do you have a kind of a guy that maybe should surprise some people here that we should watch for that maybe isn't on our radar right now?
I like what Colton said about Kassian just because it's more of a playoff style player. And I think the word you're looking for is engaged. So when he's hitting and playing that hard nosed, grinded hockey that the playoffs require you to play, I think he's a better player. I think my eyes are more going to be on James Neal, like I said last podcast, just because of his consistency and ability to put the puck in the net. And he also comes with a lot of playoff experience, which there's not too many players on the Oilers, I think, that have that much experience. He's probably one of the top playoff games played on the team. I would like to go with guys like Puljujärvi or Yamamoto or Cahoon just because of their upside playing on those high lines and the top 2 lines. But I just don't know if they're going to be able to jump right into the playoffs. The playoffs without. I think Cahoon has 0 games experience, and same with Puljujärvi, right? So I'd be a little bit hesitant just because of that. So I'm going to go with the big vet and go James Neal here.
Well, you stole mine. So when it comes back around to me again, I'll pick a different one. But we'll go to Brian right now. I do like what James Neal has.
I've had like my second, third, and fourth choices stolen already. So
well, there's there's a reason that the Oilers have put James Neal in these games in the last few, 5 or 6 games, and he's starting to produce. Like I think Tippett knows that this is a guy who, when he gets hot, is dangerous, right? Like he can go on a run of 3 or 4 games and get 3, 4. He's not going to now necessarily do it now and not in playoff, but 2 goals a game, not out of the reach for a guy like him. So I can see why they getting him hot, and I can see why he's not one of the people coming out of the lineup with the news that maybe Cassian's coming in. We'll go there in a minute. So Colton's got Cassian. Julian's kind of got Cassian mixed with James Neal, but mostly James Neal. Brian, who are you going to go with now that your other 2 choices are out of there?
Puljujarvi's too easy, right? So I'll go way off the board here. I'll go Archibald.
Good pick. What about Archibald do you like?
I don't have any great insight on that. That's just a gut feeling. I would have said Cahoon. I might have said Cassian, but you know what? Archibald is just a guy. He's kind of got that intangible quality that you could just see rising to the occasion in moments like this. So yeah, there we go. That's my random pick for the night.
Well, hey, if Fernando Pisani got 14 and, there's a lot of close games, Archibald could get 3 empty netters in a whole playoff run. That's possible, right? That guy's on the ice for the finish of every close game. Like you are right. He's good. And I was on a podcast right at the beginning of the season, and somebody had asked me, who's your sleeper pick for the year if you could pick a guy? And I actually said Josh Archibald, because I remember what he did last year and how he kind of elevated every once in a while in that first line, and he hung around and he had the speed to play with McDavid. I didn't assume he would do that much this year, and he hasn't done that much this year. But when he gets that opportunity and he's put in there, he produces like every single time. He plays physical, aggressive hockey. He's a penalty killer. He's fast. He can score. He's got some finish to his game. I like that pick. I'm totally with you at all. I'm glad you didn't take Puljujarvi, because that's who I'm going to take. I've been praising him all season. I don't know why I would stop now. I just get the sense that if Puljujarvi has a fast start, like if he scores on Wednesday or he scores in game 2, watch out, because this is a kid who, when he's got some confidence, could really roll. And that's what I like about him, because I don't think they're pulling him off that top line. I don't care what happens. He would have to really crap the bed for him to not be in that position. Unlike a Dominic Cahoon, who I think might only get a showcase, and if he doesn't produce, he might not stay there. Puljujarvi's there. He's locked in with McDavid. So if he gets off to an early start, I have a feeling that we could see a lot of goal scoring from him. And he just gets better and better every game. He gets more aggressive. I think even though he hasn't quite got that nasty streak, he's starting to use his frame, his body, playoff hockey. It might be right up his alley. You know what I mean? Like, he's not mean, but he knows how to use his size now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because even if he's not being effective on the score sheet, I think that on that top line, he can create turnovers, play hard against the boards. And if he's recovering the puck in the corners and getting it to guys like McDavid or Draisaitl, if he's on that top line too, then that's an effective player in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Can I just stop in here too real quick?
Yeah.
Interesting, of all the names that between the 4 of us we came up with, no one mentioned Yamamoto.
Well, I do like Yamamoto. I just worry about his injury. He hasn't really had a run yet. Maybe he gets hot. Maybe he gets hot at the exact right time. But he just doesn't seem like he's got it all right now. And I don't know if he's hurt or if he's whatever's going on there. And I would hope that doesn't mean he's not going to be effective. And if he gets hot, that's really good for the Oilers, because their second line will be dangerous. But
yeah, I mean, it's all about catching lightning in the bottle. And he did that last January to March. He had like an 8-week stretch. If he can have another 8-week stretch like that, well, we'll look out.
Yeah. So Colton, you picked Cassian, and there's news, it looks like, from practice today that he's probably going to play game. And I think Tippett said officially he's playing game 1, and it looks like Alex Chason's coming out. So it's a fair pick to pick someone like Cassian, because we know he's going to be in there. What do you think about the fact that they're making that swap? Is that at all troubling, concerning? He hasn't played in a long time, and when he has played, he wasn't terribly effective, but everybody says this is exactly the kind of hockey that Cassian is good at. So what do you think about the news that Cassian's in and Chason's looks to be out?
I agree with you. I was surprised when I seen it. I just thought, since he hasn't played, and I want to say it's about a month now, I did think it was a bit surprising. But I like it. Like I said, I think he's the kind of guy that'll really amp up his game for the playoffs. I like his speed, the physicality. I think what that you really need in the playoffs is the physicality too, and he's their one guy up front that really provides that. So I like the swap.
Brian, do you think it's at all concerning that Kassian coming in and Alex Chason coming out is kind of a maybe not so good for the power play? I mean, Julian, we'll talk to you in a second because you picked James Neal, so that's could be great news for James Neal on the power play. But Chason's been a pretty effective weapon in front of the net in the Oilers power play. Can Kassian do that? Are they going to even ask Kassian to do that?
He's got a good track record, I guess. He's showing. I think it was Colton was pointing out the 2017 playoff run, how pivotal he was to the Oilers' success then. I think we talked about this throughout the season, that it just seems that he's the kind of guy that gets fired up in particular games, in particular environments. And I've wondered all year long with the absence of fans, how much that's affected a guy like him. Just because he draws so much energy off, whether it's the hostility from the opposing fans or just the atmosphere in a home barn. I think that really drove him in 2017. So he's got to find that now. He's got to find something within himself to unlock that in this current environment. But, you know, it's like I say, the track record speaks for itself. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I would have him on a short leash.
Is there any danger that he's too hyped up, that he oversteps? Because one thing Kassian has been known to do every once in a while, take it a tiny little bit too far and get some penalty trouble.
Yeah, there's definitely that danger. And that's part of having him on a short leash, I think.
Yeah. No, Julian, you picked James Neal. Was part of the reason for that because Chason came out, or you just think, you know, James Neal's probably going to do well? So where does the Kassian relationship with the James Neal thing fit for you?
So I like James Neal better on the, like, I picked James Neal just because I think that he's good on that third line and he'll drop better matchups on that third line pairing against, if he's playing against Logan Stanley and Tucker Pullman, I think he could be really effective. But in terms of Kassian, I think they could be interchangeable at times, depending on if someone's ineffective. If James Neal hasn't shown much on the power play, then they could go easily to a guy like Kassian. I like the move to take Chason out for Kassian. I think that I like Kassian's game better fit for a playoff style hockey. My only fear would be that maybe it's not in terms of this game. It's in this series. It's not maybe what exactly the Oilers need in their lineup. They have guys that can do what Kassian does and be a little bit more effective and skilled. And perhaps this series itself against an Oilers, they don't really have any tough guys that they need to be worried about, or maybe you know, that are gonna play that same style back. So I think that it's going to be very interchangeable depending on whereabouts the series they are. I think it's a good move for the first game to set the tone, play physical game, and maybe get that energy going throughout the team. And then depending on what happens and what needs to be improved on, if they do lose or if they do win, different areas of the game they have to fix up. I think they have different parts that can be interchangeable in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to disagree with everybody on the Kassian thing. I think for me, Kassian, and you made this point, Julian, so I will agree with this, is that I don't think this series is going to be terribly physical, outside of the fact that it's a playoff series. So, of course, the physicality ratchets up a little bit. But I don't know that I put Kassian in yet. I like what Ryan McLeod, James Neal, and Alex Chason had built toward the end of the season. They were on some real kind of a run there, had some chemistry going. And when you take Chason out, not only do you affect that line potentially, but you also affect the power play. I think Kassian for me would have been one of those decisions. Look, if this series gets a little bit out of hand, it's starting to get a little nasty. Then you go, okay, let's call in the big gun, right? Let's call Zach Kassian in and see what happens. And we'll start to turn that tide in our favor again. And he could be a swing, right? He could be one of those guys. Look, if it's getting out of hand and it's more physical than we thought it was going to be, okay, Kassian's coming in, heads are going to roll and see what goes up. But I don't know that you need him yet until it's proven to do that. And I just worry that he's been off so long and he hasn't been terribly effective leading up to his going down, that I don't know if I remove Chason, a guy on your power play, out of there yet. I could be totally wrong. It might be the exact right decision to make, but we'll see, right? If he's effective, then great. But Chason is also a little bit of a poop disturber, right? Like he's not a bad guy to have in your lineup for the playoffs. So I kind of like that too. Any final thoughts on Kassian before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I think you make good points there, Jim. And, you know, we'll find out. I think It's going to be interesting. Like I say, keep him on a short leash. But you make a great point about the chemistry that line there had coming down the stretch. I liked a lot of what I saw from them too. You might even made me change my mind here on this one. So we'll find out.
That's my job.
I think if there is a game that you want to put him in, it's game one though, just to set that tone and then see what he gets. If he doesn't do good, then and he doesn't play because he's coming off injury and he's not good enough, then that's it. You take him out, and it's only game one at least, right? It's not like you're switching the lineup and making those tweaks in a game 4, game 5 where it matters more, I think.
Sure. I mean, that's a fair point because Jujhar Khaira has started the last 3 or 4 games at center ice. Like Tippett wants to set those tones. That's absolutely a deal. All right, Colton, I'm going to start with you on this one. We've talked a lot about Mike Smith throughout the season, and as our show has gone on here, he's going to be a massive, massive factor for the Edmonton Oilers. I don't know where you rank him in terms of importance. McDavid, Draisaitl, Nurse, Smith might be in the top 3. I don't know, but he's going to be extremely important. How well do you think he rebounds from last year when he had that one game that just didn't go well and he never really saw the playoffs again? He's the go-to guy for Edmonton because Koskinen coming in is cold. Like, he has not played well. He's leaked a bunch of easy, quick goals. He's probably the least confident he's been all year. So Smith's going to be really, really important here. What kind of this series do you think Mike Smith is going to have?
Yeah, like you said, I think if they are forced to go to Koskinen or were forced for whatever reason, I think they'd be in a lot of trouble. As far as like Smith's performance last year, I think just last season in general, he didn't have a good year or a great year by any means. I think he's come into this season, and like we said, I think he is in the Vezina Trophy race. So I think that I expect him to be a lot better in that regard. And in terms of importance, I would say pretty well right after McDavid. I mean, maybe Draisaitl kind of put him on the same level, I guess, because like I said, if anything happens to Smith or if he doesn't play well and you have to turn to Koskinen, I think that should cause quite a bit of worry for Oilers fans.
Ryan, do you see Smith being as good in the playoffs as he's been all regular season?
I don't want to sell the guy short. To be honest, I'm a little bit. To me, that's the question mark of the series. Like, all things being equal, the Oilers should win this thing. But Mike Smith is going to have to do what Mike Smith has done all season long, and he's not given us any reason to doubt he can't continue that. So, let's hope he keeps it rolling. I don't want to read too much into last season. I think it's kind of unfair. He played 25 minutes. He had a bad 25 minutes. The timing of it wasn't great. But that was their first serious game in 4 or 5 months. His previous experience in the playoffs, which is pretty limited for a guy that's been around as many seasons as he has. I think he's only played about 23 or 24 playoff games in his career, but he's been good. I mean, I'm just not going to put too much stake into 25 minutes in a bubble in the middle of August. So I think it's really going to come down to him. Like, we know what we're going to get out of McDavid and Draisaitl. They're going to deliver. They both have good playoff track records for as limited as it's been. I'm confident in Nurse. So from that perspective, I might almost say that Smith is certainly top 3 importance to this team. In some perspectives, possibly even the most important factor, just because we don't know what we're going to get out of him, and we do from the others.
Yeah, Mike Smith is very interesting. Like, I do think that the playoff bubble means something from last year, but not in a negative way. Like, I think that that's the kind of thing that's going to fuel a competitive guy like Mike Smith. You know what I mean? Like, he's never going to tell you that it bothers him, but he's pissed about it, and he's probably still pissed about it
too.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But I don't think that he thinks negatively about it, because I think in his mind he knows that was a fluke. That was a weird situation. He was in dad mode because he had a bunch of time off. He had his kids, and then he left his kids. He had to come back and play hockey. Like, a lot of those players were heavily affected by having to leave their families like that. I don't know if Mike Smith was ready to play hockey then, right? No. And so I think he probably looks at that. This is not happening again. I know it's not happening again, but I got to prove to people that was not me, right? And so I think he's motivated.
Yeah, that's driven him all year. And I even wonder, like, if they'd got back to him, say, in game 4, what he would have come out, and he never had a chance to even redeem himself last year within the bubble. So, like I say, it was 25 bad minutes. It is what it is, and that's in the long past. I'm not going to nothing that happened then is going to dictate, I think, other than, like you said, Jim, he's using that as a positive motivator.
Julian, he's talked about the fact that he's not really looking at the matchup between him and Connor Hellebuyck, but everybody is. Do you see this as a duel between 2 goaltenders? Does it come down to that in this series? And if so, can Mike Smith outplay him like he's done in the regular season?
In my opinion, it is a goaltender battle, and that's a big factor in this series. I think it's hard to ignore that. Just because of Hellebuck's history and how good Mike Smith's been, it's going to be who comes out and who's going to play better and outdo the other. So at this point, Mike Smith's playing with house money, and he's hoping to roll those lucky number sevens when he hits when he rolls the dice there. But I think that he's got all the confidence that he needs. He knows he's a good goaltender, and I think he's hungrier than ever to try and win a cup. So the motivation is definitely there. And as far as having memories of the past, like you were saying, I think that, goaltenders have to have short memories. You're not going to survive in this league if you let the last game or the last goal that you let in, take over your mental, right? And it's so important to clear your head, and every game's a new game. And that's the way I think goaltenders always approach it. So the only way I think that he uses that is as fuel, like you had said before. And he's a competitor, and that's what competitors do. They use their failures to propel them forward. And I think that's going to be the fire that's within him and help him play better in the series.
I do also think that they had a good hockey team last year. They have a good hockey team this year. He hasn't said it, I don't think, but I think he thinks his team is better this year. Like in front of him, the blue line's better. The team is just better.
I agree.
That it's not necessarily all on him. So I think that probably will help a little bit too. When you talk about goalies having to be mentally prepared to throw that one out, I think that may be the biggest issue for Koskinen, is that he seems to struggle when he lets in one or two, and then the floodgates just open and you can shoot high glove on him, right? And everybody knows that that's a huge problem. So I don't know. Okay, so last question before we close things off. Colton, I'll start with you. Who gets the first goal in the series for the Oilers?
Oh, geez. I mean, McDavid's too easy.
Well, that's why not take the odds?
No, I'll say Nugent Hopkins.
Nugent Hopkins, interesting.
Okay,
And nobody even said him. That would have been a good pick for the Pisani reward. Maybe he's just too good a player to be in that category. I don't know, because people do expect him to produce. Okay, so Nugent Hopkins is Colton. Brian, who you picking?
Darnell Nurse.
Yeah, he has.
McDavid. Then I'll take McDavid, because McDavid scores pretty much every game. You know it's coming at some point. It's just,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'll go Darnell Nurse. I think he's going to have a breakout performance. He's had a breakout season. I think it's going to carry on through this postseason.
Well, if the first goal is 5-on-5, he's got some really good odds of doing it, because he hasn't scored much on the power play. Not that he hasn't been good, but he just doesn't get much power play time. But he's really good 5-on-5. Julian, who's your first goal guy?
I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing, but I got my tongue out, so I'm going Jesse Puljujärvi.
Yeah, there you go. That makes. I was like, why is he sticking his tongue out at me? What did I do? What did I say? Yeah, Puljujärvi is a good pick too, and I should have picked Puljujärvi because I went with him as my Pisani award. I'm gonna go McDavid then, since none of you cowards wanted to do it. I'm gonna take the obvious answer.
Too easy of a bet.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to take free money. I am not. Beggars can't be choosers. If you're gonna get McDavid in there, it's either him or Draisaitl, right? Like, yeah. So yeah, I have a feeling, especially if they draw power play. I think if they draw power play early, it's one of those two guys. And McDavid, he's just too good, right? And he's going to be amped. Like, I just don't see this going any other way. It'll be a fun game to watch. I appreciate you guys coming on. When we do this next week, we'll be a couple games into the series, so that'll be cool to see how right or wrong we are when it all comes down. Thank you to everybody who's watching. We'll talk to you next week. Colton, Brian, Julian, appreciate it. Hopefully your predictions are right. Hopefully we're all right that the Edmonton Oilers kind of walk through the Winnipeg Jets. Cross our fingers on that one. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.